Welcome to another episode of the Peak Humans podcast. Today we have a special guest who embodies the essence of peak performance and excellence in sales. Rudy Rodriguez is a Navy veteran turned sales coach, boasting an impressive track record with over $50 million in sales coaching, education, and mastermind offerings since 2015. With a rich background as a naval officer and aviator, Rudy brings a unique and disciplined perspective to the world of sales coaching. Rudy's approach is both systematic and consultative, enabling him to build A-player sales teams that consistently exceed expectations. His coaching style is light and fun, yet always laser-focused on delivering the specific, tangible results that his clients crave to boost their sales. Beyond his coaching, Rudy also supports his clients through live events, providing immersive and hands-on experiences that deepen learning and drive real-world success. Whether you're a seasoned sales pro or just starting, Rudy's insights and strategies are sure to inspire and equip you with the tools to elevate your sales game. So let's tune in and get ready to learn from one of the best in the business. Rudy, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Naeem. Appreciate that, man. It's pretty humbling to hear that.
Yeah, man. Well, it's all true stuff, and it's fun. I'm great to have you on the show and dig in more about this. I love sales, and I know you're a master at it, so it's fun to learn more and share it with the audience.
Oh, the one thing I know as a master in pursuit is I know nothing, man. That's all I know right now. I'm barely starting.
Yup, I agree, man. It's funny. I was talking to my coach the other day, and he showed me this cool model where it is like the master. They never actually think they're mastered it, not in a negative way, right? But there's that mindset of like, there's always something to get better at. So it says a lot about you and why you're so great at what you do.
I got a lot to get better at, I'll be honest with you.
No, we all do. So let me ask you this. Let's start with what inspired you to transition from being a naval officer, which is incredible, right? And thank you for all the work you've done for our country, and an aviator to becoming a sales coach and trainer.
Oh, thanks for asking. Well, the honest answer is necessity is the mother of invention,
Hmm.
right? And I had to. The truth be told, I failed a performance evaluation to become the commander of my aircraft. And as a result, I had two options. One, I could change jobs in the Navy, or two, I could choose to leave honorably. And I didn't want to do anything else besides fly airplanes for the Navy in the Navy. So I chose to leave honorably. And that put me in a unique situation where I had to figure things out. And
Yeah.
thankfully, I did have a mentor that I hired, and I went to work for that mentor to help him build his first sales team. And honestly, I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just said, "Hey, I'll figure this out. I have experience as a leader. I have experience with teams. I love helping people. Like, just trust me, and I'll figure it out." And he did. He sent me a bunch of leads, and I went to work, and I helped to build a team and grew his business from about $1.5 million per year to over $7 million a year in about 2.5 years. And then I created a company around the same system that I developed for him, helped dozens of other companies do the same thing. And in short order, in a few years, we had helped, thousands and thousands and thousands of customers get access to coaching, education, mastermind programs to help better their lives. So yeah, it wasn't planned. It wasn't expected, but that's just that's where life took me.
Mm, that's incredible, man. I love that you turned like quote unquote a failure into a new opportunity and really ran with it and didn't let it get in your way.
Not at all. Yeah. I mean, in the moment, honestly, it felt like the worst day of my life because that was my whole identity, my whole world. It's not easy to become a Navy pilot, right? It was like 10-year commitment to get to that point. And really started when I was a child with a dream. And then all of a sudden the dream got, turned around, but that door closed and another door opened. And I'm very grateful. I now look back on that moment like, holy smokes, that was the best thing that could have ever have happened.
Yeah.
Would not trade these last 10 years and the life experiences that I've had, the people I've gotten to work with, people have gotten to help, the teams have gotten to build for any amount of flying in the Navy. Like truly.
Mm, that's incredible. What would you say to somebody? And I feel like we all, I don't want to say all, but I think pretty much most people go through these experiences in life where we have a dream, we have a vision, we're like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. And then life doesn't always turn out the way you expect it. I love that quote from Mike Tyson where he says, tell life, everybody thinks they have a plan until they get punched in the face, right?
Boom.
Exactly. So like, what would you say to somebody who like had a dream or has a dream, or they just had an unexpected turn of events, and how did you navigate that? Like, what was your mindset? What was your belief system? How'd you keep your motivation high and keep yourself and pivot?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I can answer that where I'm at today, and I can answer that where I was then.
Yeah.
What first?
What was that thing? It just cut out. What'd you say?
Which one would you like to hear first?
Oh,
Where I was today?
well, maybe whatever you feel is whatever comes up most organically for you, I guess. I would normally think maybe back then, right? Just kind of from that, but and maybe how you've evolved even to today with what's happened.
Yeah, happy to share. And a quick question for you. Are we on audio only or are we video?
Both.
Okay, cool. Cool. Just so I can keep that in context.
Yep.
So I'll share from where I was in that moment, right? Because
Mhm.
I'm sure people can relate to this. In that moment, I was scared. I was uncertain. I was afraid. I was ashamed. I didn't want to tell anybody. Right? My whole
Mm,
identity was wrapped up with this. I didn't want to tell my parents. Like
mm.
I'm like, hey guys, I'm leaving the Navy. I'm coming home, but I don't want to tell you why.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like really like I felt I was alone. Truly. I felt totally isolated. And actually talking to my late mentor, Vernon Lavia, who passed away last year, but he was like a father figure to me. He explained to me that I was going through a very unique situation where there's three major stressors that hit people in life, like the biggest stressors. One is changing jobs, two is changing relationships, and three is changing where you live,
Mm,
right? And all of a sudden I got thrown into all three all at once. And it was in a bit of a spin, to be honest with you. And I
yeah.
ended up moving back home to be with my parents. I actually slept on the couch. They didn't even have an extra bedroom because my brother and sister still lived at home. So I slept on the couch in the porch during the Chicago winter. So I had a little space heater that I would sleep in front of, and I
Oof.
had a little table and a little chair. And that was all I did was I rolled out of bed. I sat at my table and chair and I went to work. I just did whatever I knew I needed to do that day. And I
Mm,
would work for 12 plus hours a day, 6 days a week until. And to be honest with you, I didn't focus so much on money, even though it was dwindling. I didn't have a paycheck coming in. I didn't know where the next check was going to come from, but I focused on service. I just knew that the more people I could help, the more I'd be taken care of. So my
yep.
complete focus was, hey, how can I get up every day, take care of myself, take care of my body, my well-being, that sort of thing, and then go to work and help as many people as possible. And it was that mindset that moved me forward. And quite honestly, the necessity of it, because I had to do it. There was either that or not eat,
Hmm.
right? Or ask my parents to, to borrow money or something like that. I was already sleeping on the couch. I wasn't going to borrow money from them.
Yep.
So that was again, it was a circumstance that kind of forced it. But that being said, one of the things that I had through all that, through all of it, was a vision, right? In
Mm,
fact, I did a personal development seminar called the Landmark Forum about a year prior to that. And that
hmm.
was my first personal development seminar. And I went through that. And in that seminar, I had a vision that I was going to help tens of thousands of people, right, in their
Mm,
life. I was going to work with my mentor to do that. So I just had this strong vision for my life. And I held that intention. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I just held that intention and I kept surrendering to whatever the right action was in front of me. And that's just what showed up. And before I knew it, honestly, a year went by and I looked up and I was like, holy crap, we did it. We helped a lot of people. There's plenty of money in the bank account. We started growing a team, um, which eventually ended up leading me to my first UPW, Unleash the Power Within event, which I know you're
yeah.
familiar with. It
Yep.
was July of 2015. So I left the Navy in July of 2014, and then July 2015, I did a Unleash the Power Within event in Chicago, and that took my experience of my life in business to a whole new level of peak performance. I didn't even know what I didn't know going into that. And then I just I couldn't get enough. I was like, oh my God, I have to learn from this guy, Tony Robbins. So I just ran forward and I joined his platinum partnership program. I put all the money that I had in the world plus some on the table. I said, let's do this thing. And then I followed Tony Robbins around the world for 12 months and, learned from the master of peak performance, which I know he's a mutual teacher to both of us.
Yep. That's awesome. What
Yeah.
I love how you go all in, right? And you're committed to mastery. What made you decide to go see Tony? And how did it even come up? You heard about it, a friend told you?
Funny story. Um, the friend that I did a landmark with a friend, so I invited him. We did it together, and then later I ended up visiting him. He's like, "Hey, have you heard of this guy called Tony Robbins?" Like, no, I never heard of him. He's like, "Well, he's doing this event called UPW. We should go together." And I was like, "Oh, that'd be fun. I'll do something with you. You know, you're my buddy."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, here's some tapes, things called Unlimited Power. You should listen to these." He actually gave to me on Dropbox. I was totally stealing. You know, I was
Mm.
doing all free audio stuff. But I started listening to his tapes, and then sure enough, the UPW was coming up, and I asked my buddy, and I was like, "Hey, are we still going to this thing?" He's like, "Well, stuff's come up, whatever." And I'm like, "Well, I've been listening to these tapes. So I kind of like this guy, so I'm going to go anyway." And so I just went, and I didn't know anybody there. I got a general admissions ticket. Thankfully, I had a good friend of mine who lived in the Chicago area, pretty close to the venue, so I stayed on her couch.
Yeah.
She had done UPW before, so she was very encouraging. And yeah, it was just like it was a calling, and I went, and I'm glad I hadn't turned back since then.
I love that, man. So cool. So speaking of you said what every day when you woke up on the couch, you were just focused on, I love the service aspect, which we'll talk more as you talk more about your business and how you help clients and as well. So hugely today, but also you talked about you take care of yourself. You took care of it and you still do, right? But back then you took care of yourself too. So like, what are some ways you do today? And well, yeah, today actually, that's what's going on today. Like, what's some of your rituals or your habits or what are things that actually help you be a peak performer so you can actually add more value to your clients and to the people you work with?
Yeah, thank you. The answer is today is fairly different than 9 years ago when I did UPW.
Yep.
Um, Today my life has greatly been impacted by a recent work I've done with a school out of India called
Mm,
Ecom, which they're
yep.
a World Center for Enlightenment, and enlightenment defined as the thing of all forms of suffering, which is defined as undesirable emotions like grief, sadness, anger, jealousy, spite, depression, those sort of things. And I did a very immersive experience with them recently, a whole month in India. And it really changed my life and also changed my perspective on peak performance, to be very honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I discovered for myself is that a lot of the things I was doing for quote unquote peak performance were actually what I now see as noble distractions, things that I did as
Mm,
coping mechanisms for the
yeah.
hurt that was really buried deep down inside me, right?
Mm,
For the not enough that was deep down inside me, for the
yep.
anger that sat inside me. And I had a coach I had various coaches on speed dials. I was always reading a book. I was always doing something. But at the end of the day, it's because I had a lot of hurt deep inside. So I went to work on getting to the source of what is causing the stress, what's causing the anxiety, what's causing the jealousy. I had gone through a recent breakup at the time, the
Yeah.
fear, right, of loss of love. Like, what's at the source of all this? Yeah, I can listen to another book on relationships and all that, but really, what's the source? And I really got to go to the source of that and allow myself to experience it. And it was uneasy. It was really
Yeah.
difficult. But in going through that and that tough emotional experience, I found a lot of freedom.
Yep.
And having come back home from that, I've had a whole new perspective on peak performance, because my perspective now has been doing things not from a place of like I have to be bigger, I have to be better, I'm not enough, I need more money, I need more muscle, I need, hotter chicks, like bigger car, bigger house. Like that's not even a conversation that I have with
Yep.
myself, right? It's not even about that, but rather now I wake up being like compelled, I'm inspired. It's like
Mm,
I love what I do, and I want to give it my all. Hell on earth is to meet the person I could have been, and
yep.
uh, and the money just follows, man. And so to answer your question, what I do now, it's honestly I listen to a lot more of my intuition.
Yeah.
You know, tune into my body. It's like, what does my body need? Like, what is needed? And my body has a lot of intelligence. Like
Yep.
I do my best to sleep in until I'm rested.
Yep.
Right? I drink a lot of water. I started now doing athletic greens, which you're a big proponent of. You actually gave me my first sample, which I appreciate.
Yep. You were guzzling that down. I remember that. That was great.
Yeah, I move my body, which I know is like, physiology first, but it's not always the same, right? I'm not like
Yep.
crazy intense about it all the time. Sometimes I am. Sometimes I do hit workouts. Sometimes I get out and like, get my body right now just feels stiff. I'm gonna do a good stretch or a good, a Goscue method
Mm.
or alignment process or just a walk. I'm just gonna walk my dog and I'm gonna enjoy that walk, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like super intense every day, but I do move my body because one of the things I learned from a mentor, that exercise is not necessarily like an antidepressant. It's when we don't move our bodies that actually causes depression,
Yep.
right? So that's one of the things that really stuck with me. So it's just moving my body. It doesn't have to be extreme every time, but I've learned to move my body in some way. Having a dog really helps because I have to take her for a walk anyways. And then, when it comes to like reading books, I know there's a lot out there that says, hey, Tony Robbins talks about net time, no extra time. Like if you're in a car, listen to an audiobook, right? If you're on the toilet, pick up a book and start reading, right? It's listen to a podcast. And I did that for a long freaking time, almost 10 years. And I've went through a lot of books but after going through this process at Eckham, I discovered that a lot of that was coming from a place of like, not, I don't know enough. I'm
Mm.
not good enough yet. I got to read another 5 books before I can go do something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just like this insatiable, like I'm not smart enough, right? I'm not enough. And after having gotten rid of that, I'm like, you know what? I read when I have a need for information.
Hmm.
So it's a specific thing. Like right now in my business, I'm like, I'm in a season where I want to learn how to add more value to people. So I'm going to read a book called The Go-Giver. Right? I've heard good
Mm.
things about this book.
Great
It's an
book.
easy read. It's like I picked it up not because I had to pick a book up. I was like, no, this is why, it's not all the time. For a period of time I was reading The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham, right? And
Another great one.
I was in a season of like, hey, I need to ask myself some better questions around my business, right? But again, it wasn't obsessive. It wasn't constantly. In fact, I canceled my Audible account. It sounds crazy to peak performers.
Yeah.
All right. It's the fastest, easiest way to consume more knowledge.
Yeah. On level 3 times speed.
Yeah, I'm faster, smarter. I
Yeah.
I, I paused. I didn't cancel it because I didn't want to lose all the things I paid for, but I paused it.
Yeah.
And so now I'm just more on like what's the appropriate action? What does my mind, my body, my spirit need right now
Yeah.
forward? And what does my intuition need? I am a lot more intentional about pausing and tuning in. Sometimes that's in the form of the deep meditation, 20, 30
Yep.
minutes, maybe 45 minutes, maybe an hour. Sometimes I've done longer. Sometimes it's just a walk, but it's pausing to tune in with what's going on inside. Because I
Mm.
just learned that there's so much more intelligence in my body
Yep.
uh, than in my brain.
Yep.
Yeah, and I have fooled myself for so many freaking years to think that I'm a really smart dude because I went to a good school and I had a whatever. I learned a ton. I've done it. The reality is my brain has really held me back. It's been one of my greatest strengths, but one of my greatest weaknesses.
Yeah.
And I do my best to use it as a tool, but not it be the end all be all, and really tune in a lot more into my body and my intuition and also counsel from others. So I'm giving you a super long-winded response here to what I do to take care of myself, but it's been an interesting journey from
Yeah.
9 years ago when I went to UPW and I was like doing some super intense stuff every single day, to now it's like some days I do, some days I don't, you know, but I'm still taking care of myself.
Yep. I agree, man. I love that. It's cool to see the evolution of humans, right, over time. I remember when I first started getting into personal growth work, right? I was like so diligent and dogmatic and like I got to do this, then I got to do this, then this, then this. So I love that you brought up like it is really about, for me at least, again, who knows at the next stage of my life, right? But now I agree, it's like a tuning to where I am and what my body, what my mind, what my heart, and what my soul needs in this moment. And I feel like that's for lack of a better word, a skill, right? To like attune to that and like trust that and like fall in and sink into that as well, right?
100%. One thing I will mention is one of the things that I've learned for myself personally is that I think the core of it all is what I eat.
Mm.
Right. Like
Yep.
more than exercise, more than reading books, more than anything. It's like what I'm putting inside of my body
Yep.
basically impacts me more than anything else. So that's probably the one area of my life where I've had the most change over the last 10
Yeah.
years. Going from being a Navy pilot, honestly, as a pilot, we worked hard, we played hard, drank a lot, worked hard, ate a ton of meat, drank coffee because I had all sorts of weird schedules that I would do
Yeah.
to, you know, not doing that stuff. And
Yeah.
it's so bizarre for me to think that would basically, I wouldn't say that I never drink alcohol, but it's pretty rare.
Yep.
Um, very rare that I drink coffee or really anything that's caffeinated. It's pretty rare that I'll eat meat these days. My one vice I'll admit is sugar and sweets. I don't buy it and bring it home, but when I'm out, like I tend to have it.
Yep.
I would say that's the probably the number one performance thing that's changed my life, and honestly, it's been the hardest thing. Like I've had to undo a lot of beliefs from my time in the Navy as a peak performer. The pilots are believed to be peak performers, and they
Yeah.
are. They are. But I was strong and fast and all that, but I wasn't fit deep inside. My cells
Yep.
weren't. And thank God that I went to UPW and I got some education around, the quality of my health on the inside and how that transmutates into everything else in my life.
Yep. I love that, man. I'm curious, it's a three-part question, but I'm going to give it all at once and you can answer it. What's one thing you learned in the Navy? What's one thing you learned being a platinum partner with Tony for a year? And then what's one thing that you learned through Ecom?
Yeah, only one thing. So if there was only one thing that I had learned from the Navy, from a plat partner and the EC and ECM. I like that question. So from the Navy,
It doesn't have to be like the one thing you learned. It could be just like a takeaway that you
yeah,
still
no,
live by or something that was helpful or something like that.
yeah, from the Navy, it comes down to one of the first lessons I learned was this idea of integrity
Yeah.
and and difference between integrity and honor as well.
Mm.
So I have a very specific situation where I was a freshman at the Naval Academy of Plebe, and I got in a lot of trouble because as a freshman, we they're harassing you, right? It's like a whole year
The
of
hazing process.
hazing essentially. And we all had to wear these white uniforms, they shave our head and all this, they yell at us, all this stuff. And I had this little water canteen with my name on it that I kept, like tucked away in my back pocket. And I was at the pool. We were doing like these workouts in the pool, and I came back and I changed, put it all on. I couldn't find my Nalgene that had my name on it. I was kind of looking around for everybody else was kind of vacated. There's nobody else around, and I see a Nalgene just kind of laying there. Um, but I don't see mine, but I see another one and I pick it up and it has somebody else's name on it. So I'm assuming that nobody else is in the room. I'm assuming someone else took my Nalgene, right? And they have mine, I have there, and they left theirs. So I'm like, well, I'll just take this one and
Mm.
then take it with me and put it on around. So that person, I think, ended up trying like turning it in. And then somehow it got back to me like, hey, you don't have, here's your thing. Uh, and then they're like, which one do you have? And I was like, well, I have one that somebody else left behind. They're like, well, that means you just stole something. And I was like, what? They're like, yeah, like that was a potential honor violation is what they said it was. And granted, I can look back and I know that they were really fucking with me, because I was part of
Yep.
the hating process, but it really like brought forward this idea or this notion that something as simple as picking up somebody's water bottle, right, that without their permission or them knowing could be a form of honor violation or theft, right?
Yep.
It's like the level of conduct and expectation for honor and integrity can be really high in some
Mm.
places. So it just, it was a rude awakening. It was a lesson that had me like really think about that in my life. Like, hey, what
Yeah.
is honor? What is integrity? By the way, um, at the academy, we had a lot of rules, a lot of rules. It was almost impossible to not break a rule at the academy. Thankfully, I did graduate without any serious uh um demerits, I would say, but I definitely broke a few rules, some intentionally, some on accident. And the thing I learned is there's a difference between breaking a rule and lying about breaking a rule.
Mm.
right? And I
Yep.
intentionally broke rules, all right, when I thought that was the appropriate thing to do in the situation,
Yep.
in the circumstances. And I have no regrets about that, right?
Yep.
I learned to think critically in that way and take some risks, take some
Mm.
calculated risks, but I didn't lie, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think I cheated. I don't remember cheating, but it might have happened. I don't know. So that was a big distinction, right? It's like
Yeah.
following rules or just dealing with like, hey, if I'm not going to follow a rule, just being willing to deal with the consequences and not going to lie about it, right?
Yeah.
Somebody asked me, I'll give an example. We have curfews, and if I wasn't in by curfew and somebody asked me about it, I would say, yeah, I wasn't in.
Mm.
If I get caught, I wasn't in. But hey, if I don't
Yep.
get, maybe I should have thrown myself in, but I took the risk, right?
Yep.
So that's one thing that from the academy that probably was a big lesson to take away from Tony Robbins Platinum Partnership. I think you and I all both know the answer here. It's the line that pulled me into Platt was proximity is power,
Yeah.
right? Tony tells a story that, hey, who you are is based off the standards of your peer group. All right. And he actually gave a story about the military when he told that story. He told about the Marine Corps and how people in the Marines are super fit, but then when they leave the Marines, they get fat and sloppy. And it's like, why is this the case? Because when the Marines are all around other Marines, right? And in that moment, I was like, I was doing well, but I'm like, I need another peer group. I need to like level up and be with a peer group of people who are impacting the world at a level that I'm committed to impacting the world. And I
Mm.
actually remember going to Scott Humphrey, which is Tony's brother-in-law who managed the platinum program.
Yep.
And I went to make that deposit. It was like a $15,000 deposit. And I only had five in that moment on a credit card. I said, Scott, here's my $5,000 deposit. He said, hey, come back when you have 15. I said, no, Scott, run my card for $5,000. I'm committed to being part of this group, right? I'm committed to making the impact in the world that I'm committed to seeing. Take the 5,000. I'll be back. I will
Mm.
close the loop. I will pay the balance. But take this now. There's no other option, right? And he did.
Nice.
I went to work and I came up with the rest of the money and took care of all that. So um
You sold Scotty. Scotty's usually selling everybody else.
yeah, exactly. And but it's interesting. The other lesson to kind of parlay on that proximity's power is this notion that I am the the group that I'm part of, right? So all of a sudden my action started to change. I started to think bigger, take bigger actions, just behave differently.
Mm.
And before I knew it, deal sizes started to increase. I ended up closing out that year at I went from like $280,000 the year prior. That year I closed out at $800,000. The next year, $2.1 million. Right? It's like and this is not sales. This is like commissions paid to my company. Like this, we actually caused like $10 million in sales, right?
Yeah.
So it was
What was the jump from the beginning of Platt to the end of Platt? The 200K to 2.8, or what was the jump?
yeah, basically 10x. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like on a
Nice.
200. Well, no, but no. From beginning plat to end of plat was like 280K to like 800 and some K, so like a 4x.
Yeah.
But but then the year after plat was like 2.1 million. So that momentum built, right, and just kept going.
Yep.
But more importantly for me, it was all a reflection of the number of lives
Yeah.
that able to impact. So I was able to build a team. I was able to transfer the skills of performance to
Yep.
the team, right, and build a high performing team. And really, that has been my focus over the last years is how do I build teams that operate at a high level of performance, a high level of communication, a high level of excellence. Because I, as a human being, can't do a whole lot on my own.
Hmm. Yep. And we're gonna dig into that more. But what's the last one real quick about Eckham? And you might have already said it, right? Learning to tune into
Yeah,
yourself
no,
and trust your intuition.
Eckham, I mean, if I were to oversimplify it, it's honestly at the core of almost everything I've done in my life. I now see it's been because of some pain or wound that I've
Hmm.
had deep down inside, some suffering, some undesirable emotional, and really realizing that there is no amount of coaching, there is no amount of audiobooks, there's no amount of money, there's no amount of women that was going to make that go away.
Mm.
I had to actually go deal with that.
Yep.
Nothing mattered more. Nothing matters more than that. Nothing matters in life more than ending suffering.
Mm,
When I suffer, I attract more crap into my life. When I'm not suffering, maybe some people call it living in a beautiful state, life tends to flow. Life tends to be a dance, tends to be play, tends to be joyful, tends to be
mm.
purposeful, tends to be love. In this moment, I'm feeling tremendous passion and love. Like it's I'm present with you and our audience here. And but that wouldn't be possible if I just kept covering up the suffering.
Yeah.
And I want to be clear, it's not that I don't suffer at all. It's not at all. That's bullshit. That's fantasy. But I lean into the work of ending that suffering
Yeah.
because I believe that is the most important key to unlock as a performer, as a leader, someone who's
Mm.
committed to making an impact on the planet.
So true, man. I couldn't say it any better. Yeah. It's like living at the edge, right? Like leaning into it and like dancing with it, dancing with the fear and feeling into it.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So let's talk about you provide sales support and coaching for event leaders of virtual and in-person events. And we were just talking about how you also build A-player teams. Um, how do you do that? That's a big question, right? But like, I don't even know where to start with you on this, but like, what do you love about that? How do you do that? Like, let's just start with that, honestly,
Yeah.
for lack of a better question.
How and what, well, how and what follow the why.
Yeah,
And
cool. Yeah, why?
for me, the why is creating a world where every human being who seeks it gets access to the coaching, the education, the mentorship they need to succeed in their lives and their businesses. And
Mm,
I've been so freaking blessed, Naeem, to have had such wonderful teachers, mentors, coaches in my life, from a high school counselor who taught me what a GPA was. I didn't even know what a GPA was,
mhm.
honestly. That's a whole nother story. To being able to because of him, I was able to graduate as a valedictorian in my high school class. To a man who's now passed by the name of Vernon Lavia, who took me under his wing at the age of 18, and he basically loved me as a son for 20 years. And he was a self-made multimillionaire in his late 20s, and he was very loving and blessing, and he taught me everything. He hid nothing back from me.
Mm,
To many advisors and coaches, at this point, over $500,000 that I've invested with many people to learn. And I feel like I have been able to live the life that I live because of these wonderful human beings and because of the access to the education that they provided. So
mm.
I'm committed to creating a world where everybody has access to what they need, what they want. It may not be the same as what I need and want, but it's what they need. It's what you need and want. And the way that's my why, right? And my strategic objective, right? Like the how to go about doing that has been to create a company called Wingman, where we partner with reputable brands, companies that have program offerings that make a meaningful difference in people's lives.
Mm,
And being a partner and providing world-class sales support services like a sales team, right? To be able to represent them, to support them, and in helping enroll more clients into their high-end programs where their lives change, and doing it in a way that is with value first, consultative based, integrity defined as keeping our promises,
mhm.
right? Exaggerating, and also being able to unlock that leader to not worry about the sales so much and be able to focus
Yeah.
on what they do best, which is teaching, educating, holding the container, right, for their students. So that is the why and the how. Um, and the what specifically, we like I said, we build teams, we support events. Oftentimes I partner with clients and we just run all the back of the room stuff for them, including helping them as well as being ready to deliver their presentations and be sure that they're in peak performance as well. So that's the big picture of that. And as you said in my introduction, we've accounted for over $50 million in coaching, education, mastermind type program offerings
Yeah.
that I have on a dashboard. I'm not just making these numbers up. Like we keep metrics, we track the impact that we make. And that's been over 10,000 human beings in the past 10 years who've gotten access to coaching, education, masterminds and being able to meaningfully impact their lives as a result of that.
Yeah. That's incredible, man. I love that. And
Thanks,
it's
man.
awesome because I know a lot of coaches that aren't great at that, right? So it's cool that you create that framework and structure for people to stay in their lane, do what they love, operate in their genius, and then but they can still get their message out and reach more people and touch more lives as well, and also build a profitable business, right? Because again, a lot of people, not just coaches, right, but just people in general, they don't always have the savviness of selling their products and building out the frameworks to do that.
Yeah, and I definitely want to make a plug for my team here because
Yeah.
I'm just a lonely man here. I've been I have wonderful people around me, worked with me now for over 8 years.
Yeah.
Uh and it's our team that brings the magic to the work that we do. It's I'm not the next sales guru or the next best thing. In fact, in the book called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, he
Yep.
actually talks about this notion of like having the all-star peak performer, uh, you know, NBA. Right now is the NBA finals, so like the NBA all-star on your team. It's actually a bane to the existence of a company because the whole company depends on one person to be the peak performer,
Yep.
and that one person gets hurt, injured, fails. There's a fallout with that person. Your whole business is held hostage. So I'm not a believer in, any one person on our team being like the rock star, but it's like, how do we create a team effort, teamwork with our partners, with our team, so that there's no, Achilles heel in what we're doing, right? Because it's
Mm.
not about the ego and who's the star and all
Yeah.
that. Like, how do we help the client? How do we help the attendee at the event get what they need so they can make an informed decision, invest in the program, and commit to change their lives?
Boom. I love that. So how do you do that? How do you maintain peak performance at live events for the speakers and also for the sales team?
Yeah, great question, man.
I know that's a big question too, right? So you obviously maybe just give
Yeah,
us
yeah.
a
So
little bit
I'll,
overview.
I'll reference a recent event we did with a couple speakers. It was their first event with their newest company, but it wasn't their first event ever in their business.
Mhm.
And for them in particular, and they're performers, right? It's when you're working with peak performers, they already know stuff, so it's not a matter of necessarily teaching things. It's sometimes a matter of reminding them of what they already know
Mhm.
and encouraging, supporting them, and creating the environment so they can step into that.
Yeah.
So for me, it was more around making sure they were supported in their talking points around their offering, right? And having a great framework so they felt certain and confident in delivering that, right? Because when you when you prepare, like oftentimes people are afraid, right, to speak from stage. You're a speaker, I'm sure you can relate to that. But fear is a byproduct of not feeling prepared,
Yep.
right? So if I can help our partners, our event leaders prepare in advance, not just their presentation, give them a sense of certainty because they see how everything's set up in the back of the room. They see how much effort we put in prepare. We actually will go and interview their attendees in advance of the event to figure out what are their main challenges, pain points, needs, wants, and desires. We'll create a summary. We'll deliver that to them. We'll brief them on it so they feel like they're in the know of what's going on, right? We do everything we can to make them feel and give them the opportunity to prepare so that when they walk in the room, the success of the event financially is a foregone conclusion, right?
Mm.
So they tell them what to do, but I do my best to give them the information and inform them in a way that helps them be certain. So for this particular client, their offer didn't work super well on the second day. So I was like, hey, you know what? Let's right after dinner, let's go back to your hotel room. I went down 4 hours. I'm like, hey, we're gonna retool your whole presentation and practice it and role play it and make sure that it was to a place where you felt congruent, you felt certain about it. Next morning he came and he delivered and boom, like crushed it, crushed it.
Yeah.
It was like, holy crap, this guy was like a professional, it was insane. Right. So it was just
Yep.
helping me prepare. Now from a team perspective, sales team perspective, again, preparation, right? And that begins weeks before the event, something months before the event by reviewing scripts, reviewing offers, role playing, practice, drill, rehearsal, right? Immersion alone is not effective, right? You have
Yep.
to have practice, drill, rehearsal. And so doing that in advance of the event, we actually will get to an event typically a full day early, like in the morning of the day prior, and we'll go to the venue and we'll actually set up and visualize the whole thing. We'll walk through every single key moment of the event. We'll go into our sales area. We walk through how we bring people there, how we walk through the process of role play, every single step of the conversation, every nuance, the future pace, the gift, the deposit, the next step. The consultation. We normally do a two-step consultation there. So it's like add value first, and then if they look like they're qualified and they're interested, we ask if they want to learn more about the program, and then we'll do another conversation to actually review the program in detail with them. So all of this we review, we practice, rehearse, and we visualize. Right, I have to take time to like close their eyes. By the way, that's something I learned as a pilot. Right, as a Navy pilot, oftentimes and this was a thing that I was learned to do, was to visualize my mission in advance. I would visualize like the whole mission set, 10 hours of mission. Like, what are all the things I would do in the plane, landing, where am I going to go? So they call it chair flying. And I took that whole same concept and we do with our sales and our sales teams. And I think the more we visualize and prepare, the more lucky we get, right? Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So the short answer is preparation. And people who work with me oftentimes report that we tend to be like the most quote unquote prepared people they've ever worked with. But that's our secret sauce, is we work.
Right. It's so funny. It's like, it's putting in the effort and preparation 1,000,000%. Right. I love that quote. It is just so true, right? The more, if you're prepared, there's no reason to fear, right? If you actually do enough preparation on before the event actually happens or whatever it is you're working for.
Yeah.
And I love that you brought up the visualization piece. That's like, it's such a simple thing. Again, it's not simple, but it's simple in the sense we could all do it, right? But it's one of those things that I notice a lot of time people like just dismiss or think it's not that big of a deal, or they just do it like really shortly. But that's like, I know all these athletes, not all, but a lot of athletes that are really top of their game, like Jack Nicklaus, before he did a golf ball, he'd always visualize the ball. Phil Jackson with the Lakers and the Bulls and his teams, he would have them like sit down and visualize and meditate and do these practices. So that's really cool. I know the Navy, and one of my mentors is a Navy SEAL. Same thing, right? It's like using these tools, mental rehearsal as well. So that's awesome you brought that up, and you do that with your clients.
Yeah. Gratitude.
Yeah.
And really being intentional about getting to a place of gratitude every single day, especially during the events, taking the time to seeing, the lives that we've already impacted, right? Tony Robbins has an affirmation that I've modeled, and I model with our teams, saying, hey, give me the intelligence, the affluence, the willpower, whatever it takes to show them, to help them to change their lives right now, right? And like really getting connected to that, and getting our teams into state.
Yep.
And then writing out the gratitude as a foregone conclusion, right? I'm so happy and grateful now the event's over and we're celebrating, because we've added tremendous value to, all the attendees, and over 30% of them have enrolled in the program, and they've given us raving reviews, whether they bought it, they didn't. And it was all a win-win-win that was faster, better, and easier than we could have imagined, right? And like really get to that visualization, that connection, that gratitude, and doing it over and over and over again, leading up to the event, throughout the event, seeing it as a foregone conclusion. Visualization plus gratitude.
Yep. Beautiful, man. I love that. So cool. And this is all part of your VEST process, correct? Well,
yeah, VEST stands for Virtual Event Sales Team. So when the door shut down due to a lot of events went virtual. So we created a brand to focus specifically on supporting virtual events with sales teams. So we've supported at this point over 100 virtual events in the last several years, and we did really develop a proprietary process from beginning to end to be able to help virtual event leaders, especially, solve the problem that they oftentimes face, which is, they can deliver great content, but when it comes time to sell something, it's so easy for people to, because they're at home, they're online, easy for them to maybe get distracted, walk away, go off the camera, maybe just push a button and log off. So sometimes it can be difficult to really engage and connect from an enrollment perspective. But when you have a sales team that can meet with the attendees individually while they're in the container of the event, you can circumvent that problem, right? It's like you can have an engaging one-on-one conversation with another human being while
Yep.
they're in that state. Uh, it makes a world of difference. And we've consistently have put points on the board for clients, that would average about $1,500 to over $3,000 gross sales for their business for everybody that attends their virtual event, because they have a predictable, repeatable process on the back
Yeah.
end to ensure that they're getting
Nice.
value and clients coming
I
through.
love that. That's
Yeah.
amazing, man. How can people find out more about your work or connect with you?
Yeah, I got this buddy named Naeem. They can hunt him down and ask him for my phone number.
I'm gonna
Uh,
dish it out. I'm already giving it out to everybody who asks.
please don't do that. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'm very open, guys. We have a website, virtualeventsalesteam.com. You can check us out there. There's an opportunity there to learn a little bit more about what we do. Some of the testimonials. You can click a link and schedule a consultation with me or a member of our team. If you are a virtual event leader or an event leader and you want to just chat about your upcoming event, I'm happy to jump on and, jam with you and see if it's a fit for us to play together. And if you want to hit me up on socials, you can do that too. I tend to not respond right away. But I'm very open. So I'm not like going to turn anybody away, but I have an assistant that manages a lot of that for me. But I'm more than happy to chat with anybody here who's listening to your podcast and support them. If only giving them a free consultation on their event, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Amazing. Cool. And then what are your final departing thoughts or message for the audience?
Um, I think I laid it all out there, man.
Yeah.
It's one thing to leave with. It's um, love to connect with you. If you listen to this point and you've vibe with what I'm sharing, I am happy. This is actually right out of the Go Giver.
Yeah.
I'll take a quick, maybe this is a good way to tie it all. There's a quick story I read in chapter 2 here just this morning. I actually was moved to tears, Naeem. I read
Yeah.
chapter 2 here and I wasn't planning on it. I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna read a few pages real quick. And all of a sudden I'm like bawling, crying. I'm like, oh, it's my journal. Like, I gotta write this down. Like, where did this come from? And in chapter 2, it was spoiler alert here. Basically, this guy reaches out to a very predominant business leader who's very successful, and he doesn't think this guy's going to give him the time of day, right? And he just calls him up, and his assistant answers, and he's like, "Hey, I'd like to speak with I forgot the guy's name, but I'd like to speak with him." And he's like, we're getting ready to like try to navigate past the gatekeeper and like work around her or whatever. And she was like, "Oh, absolutely. Can you come tomorrow morning?" And he's like, "Well, tomorrow's Saturday morning." He's like, "Yeah, 8 a.m. Come over to his house." I'm like, "What? Really? He doesn't even know me." And it was just that level of like generosity,
Yeah.
right? And that's who my mentor Vernon was for me. He was this like
Yeah.
super successful dude who didn't have to give me the time of day, but I was an 18-year-old kid and I asked, and he would invite me over to meet him at his home at Saturday morning at 7 a.m.
Mm.
Right? And he wouldn't hold back. He would give me whatever he had, and as long as I would honor him by applying it and coming back and sharing with him what I've learned. He was
Yeah.
more than happy to share, and that's who I want to be for others as well.
Mm.
So if you're listening to this point and you think you vibe with what I'm sharing, and there's anything about this, whether it was having somebody at your event to help you crush your sales, or you want to talk about ending your suffering, right?
Yeah.
Reach out. Let me know that you heard it from me about me and my podcast, and I'll do my very best to make myself available to you and listen, contribute any way that I can. So thank you,
I,
Naeem.
I love
Appreciate
that.
that.
Absolutely. I have one more question for you now that you brought your mentor again. What's a lesson or just something that sticks with you still? I'm sure there's a lot from him, but what's a lesson or just a guiding message that you still run with a lot in your life from Vernon? It's Vernon, you said?
Vernon Levia, yeah.
You're,
Vernon, so many things. Vernon embodied this idea of my life can be my work and my work, or my work can be my play and my play can be my work. And I
mm,
can live a life in a way where no one can tell the difference.
yep.
And that's one of the many things that I strive for is live my life in such congruence with my values, my vision, my purpose, that There's not a day that goes by where I don't want to work, and people can't tell whether I'm working or whether I'm playing.
Yep, I love that, man. It makes me think of that saying, right? The master and the art of living makes a little distinction between his work and his play, his
That's
labor and
right.
his leisure, his mind and his body. That's
That's right.
awesome.
Yeah.
Beautiful, man. Well, thank you so much, Rudy. This is a awesome podcast, and thanks for sharing all your insight and experience and your vulnerability as well. So thank you.
Yeah, man. It's an honor to be here with you and your audience, bro. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.